Welcome everyone, my name is David Rezai. I'm one of the admissions coordinators here in the College of Fine Arts at the University of Texas at Austin. This video is a recording of the Monsters and Robots Are the Best Teachers virtual workshop that took place on September 23rd, 2020 as part of the Longhorn Creatives Virtual Open House at the University of Texas at Austin. Unfortunately, due to a Zoom recording error, the first 10 minutes of the session did not get recorded, but for context, this session has two of our faculty within the College of Fine Arts, J.E. Johnson and Karen Maness, discussing the evolution of their mini experiential learning class projects that many of our arts and entertainment technology majors and theater and dance majors have participated in over the last 3 years, as well as a lot of other students within the university as a whole. You'll see some video footage highlighting the class projects, hear from J.E. and Karen about the classes themselves, and hear from a couple of the students who participated in the classes with a brief Q&A at the end, talking about their experiences creating these immersive experience projects within the community. Enjoy.
Class and the beauty of these, the beauty of these dinosaurs, of course, lies in the hands of every student who took part in the creation of how these dinosaurs would be built. Because we didn't start with a schematic. We started with a beautiful design created by one of our graduate students. Her name is Caitlin Graham, and she was tasked as she was the costume designer for a production called Enron. And these three costumes were essentially going to be cut from the production because the faculty member, James Glavin, who typically teaches puppets here at UT, he was off on sabbatical. So it was a moment where Jay and I looked at each other. We realized, this element would be either shopped out to a different production house, purchased, or just cut from the production. And then we saw this as an opportunity to we created this was a rapid fire independent study, and we built the plane as, we were flying it. And these students, as you saw from the video, went from, I swear to you, tape and pool noodles and coffee cups and any other medium they needed at the very beginning to this in 14 weeks. J.E. wants to share any more about this.
No, I think you summed it up really well. So when we are looking at projects, because you're going to see a lot, you've already seen a lot of just strange different things. We have 4 things that we insist that we have to have before we take on a project like that, and that is that it's student led. That in some way, like, we stand back as instructors and say, like, here's what we're doing, you guys help us figure it out. It has to be collaborative, has to be hands-on. There's, especially now, right, there's so many opportunities to, like, engage with a computer screen and a keyboard all day, but both Karen and I, just because of our background and our skill set, we believe strongly in the creativity that can blossom out of working with your hands. And the other important thing that we've already talked a lot about is that it's outward facing, that we're constantly, like, pushing out information about what we're doing. We're developing work for a specific audience at the end. This is not, our learning does not stay in the classroom.
And where the classes are all built around the idea of design thinking as well, and constant iteration and prototyping and testing, and then always coming back to the heartbeat of the story to, like, empathize at the beginning and then define it and then ideate and reiterate and over. It's just this constant process throughout each class, as any of these students here will smile and laugh and attest to, and the million post-it notes we've used to make our way through, and there's some, and the digital version of it that we're attempting to do now that we are in COVID online land. But here is an example of the synthesizing the design brief down for these are the Velociraptors. So our students came to decide what the project structure would be to make these Velociraptors happen. And so the students decided it would break down to 3 teams: an artistry team, the structure performance team. The performance means tying to the performer, the physical performer themselves, and the lights and automation. And then within those hierarchies, I love this schematic because you can see how everything connects to the other. Nobody can work independently or it won't work. It won't operate at the end, but you can see in each area, like structure in the center, we have the harness, so that cage, and then the tail and the legs and the feet. And those post-it notes you see inside are the people. the team leaders of the feet and the legs, the arms and the hands. And then of course, you know, the performers at the heart of all of this, because if it doesn't work or fit on that performer, if it doesn't move correctly, it won't work. Then we have the art off to the side and the lights. And so also one thing to really be clear about this, we are recruiting students who are coming in from engineering, film and television, arts, design, architecture, yeah, the whole, and studio art, they're all in there. French.
Yep. So following that course, we taught just a practical special effects course, which really turned over even more creativity and agency to our students. With the Velociraptors, we started saying, like, we are building Velociraptors. Come along on this journey with us. With practical special effects, it was a little bit different, where we said, you tell us what you want to build, and we'll provide a framework for you to build it. And by the way, we're going to shoot this on Texas's largest green screen over at UT Radio, Television, and Film. And then VFX students will put visual special effects on the back of your practical special effects.
So their constraints were designing for, they had a choice. They pitched to the class would select, I think we were down to six teams ultimately, and the constraints were a physical effect for film, live theater, or themed attraction. So that's what you're seeing right here. This, the student on the right now works for, I think, Universal Studios, and he was imagining with his teammate on the left, this is the Warbringer ship from World of Warcraft.
You got it.
A video game, and so they wanted, in this case, Khan wanted to imagine a stage show in a theme park where a ship rose from a tank 3 times a day with telescoping masts. So that's what this model is.
So we'll show you another video here that has a little bit of the student voice in it, and describes what that class was about and why we taught it. The goal of the class was a collaboration intensive with the idea of having a real physical object at the end. So it was the intent for them to basically be just continuing to pitch and refine their pitch throughout the semester, and their final pitches will be to experts in the industry.
It was also, this was secretly perhaps, an experiment in helping teach students soft skills of communication.
I mean, we take a lot of inspiration from startup culture, where somebody who might have a really great idea, may not have any management skills, may not have, you know, all the skills that they need to do that startup.
So we have like film and theater and art, advertising, and everything kind of coming together. And so we all have like a different way to approach different situations.
Yes, they make a physical project. Yes, it's cool because it's practical special effects, but they have to be able to tell the story of that experience. That's the real thing that we want the students to leave with, is to be able to have that great story to tell in an interview that distinguishes them from their peers.
All right, and so sometimes we do projects that connect with outside organizations. So you've seen the Raptors, that was an internal production for the Department of Theater and Dance, and the special effects class this time, this is for Creek Show 2019, and it is a, I think it's like a 11-night publicly facing incredible art installation that happens along the banks of Waller Creek, part of the Waterloo Greenway Conservancy's mission to draw attention to this urban creek and recognition of it as the jewel of the city. And in this case, our class, this was fall, last fall, 2019, I can't believe it was a year ago. I had the great pleasure of leading an intrepid group of, I think about 16 students in design, fabrication, and then execution of this very ambitious creek monster habitat. And this was designed, if we go ahead and go to the next slide, was designed by Delina Bradley, who's a costume designer here, a graduate student. She did the set design, and the lighting design was by the wonderful graduate student Bill Rios. But this truly was a collaborative work. It was being workshopped even the year before Channing's performances collaborative practice class. The entire class studied design for performance through the lens of this project. So I feel like we have like godparents. I have hundreds of students who have dreamt about this project. Also, this project was made possible through a fund, the Green Fund grant at UT Austin, because tying into sustainability. And this is a two-part project. You'll see a little bit of the second phase of the project that got a bit derailed from COVID. But here in fall 2019, we can head to the next slide. We took this from, this is, I think, like the 6th design concept for this creek monster habitat. As you saw in that very first image, the creek monster is the mascot, if you will, for Waterloo Greenway Conservancy's Creek Show. And they approached J.E. and I when they saw the Velociraptors and said, that's amazing. Could you bring those to Creek Show? And we thought, ooh, those will never work, but maybe we could make you a monster. And it evolved into the Creek Monsters habitat. So here's our initial model. And then if we move to the next slide, you'll see the conceptual rendering done by Delina Bradley. And in her idea, the monster, basically the world was being welcomed into this habitat, into this nest, and the creek monster itself was a shy spirit and would flit in and out. It was shy but welcoming, and really inviting you into this space. And so the wonderful part of this exhibition and installation that you cannot see here was this beautiful soundscape built throughout the installation that kind of led you, because it was not just here, it was a walking path coming up as you're approaching, you're entering into this mysterious, magical place. And 60,000 people came through this installation. It was extraordinary. It was also, we were the only student group involved, and we were also the only street level team. So we had a huge amount of exposure. It was beautiful. If you head to the next one, you'll actually see the slide itself. And there's our amazing team with Channing, and Audrey should be in here, but I'm sure she was running something. So we have 2 guest students here from this project, but this was a wild project. And those eyeballs that you saw in the initial rendering would peek in and out. So they would light up and the monster would be revealed and would hide. And we have a little video showing this experience.
The creek monster habitat for us is a home that we've created for the monster.
I like to think of the creek monster as a shy, benevolent spirit. It's a magical place.
The class itself created design briefs, engaging the students completely and transparently from day one.
There are so many different aspects to this project: sound design, lighting design, architecture, just to name a few.
It's been really great collaborating with the other teams. We all come from different disciplines and we come together and we share our knowledge.
Our students are able to communicate across disciplines.
Working on this project has definitely prepared me for my future career.
The success of the work is entirely dependent on the student.
Can't wait to share it with the rest of Austin.
So, real quick, another way to look at this is, and I think we've already used the word like real, right? So you want real world experience. In pedagogical jargon, that would be authentic learning, right? So there's three ways to look at authentic learning. One, and this is done in a lot of classes where you sort of role play. You pretend that you are in the real world, and a lot of times it ends up your instructor as your boss, right? They pretend to be your boss, and you present them design briefs, and you work on a project, but that project, you're emulating a lot of the things that happen in the real world, but that project stays inside the classroom. The other way to look at this, authentic learning, is like you go out and get an internship. But then you're off campus. So you're not part of the rest of the community on campus, and these are very valuable experiences, all of them. But then what Karen and I are doing is a third type of experience, which is emergent or co-evolutionary, which I think we've emphasized a number of times. Where instead of reporting to a boss, you are the boss. You're building I like to think that every one of our courses is like a mini startup. Like we have to figure out what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then execute a plan all within the space of about 15 weeks. So if you can believe it, I can't. While Karen was leading this amazing Creek Show project, the same semester, I was leading a separate class to build an escape room in the same shop. So, and that experience was, we shared, the course impacted at least 6 other courses, like in the Department of AET and theater and dance. And so there were a lot of students who had a high investment in this, and there were some who had just came in for a little bit and did a little bit of work on it, but it impacted a lot of people. Here's a short video about what the production of that looked like. So the story behind the escape room was that the premise is that you are a scientist in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and there's a gigantic superstorm coming that's about to blow the research station off of the map. And to save the mainland, you have to get some data sent back to Texas so that they can close some floodgates and get the necessary data that they need. So this was a project that was supported by the Vice President for Research in Planet Texas 2050 here at UT. There were a lot of scientists really excited about this project because it was taking some of their research and putting it into an escape room environment that really added some excitement to their work. This was there were many collaborators on this project. You can see there's a lot of projection design. A lot of engineers worked on this project as well to develop the games. And as I think Alex, who's will be presenting soon, will be able to attest, there was a lot of uncertainty around this project as we entered into the beginning of the semester. But our process is always just to keep honing down like what, you know, the essentials of the project, and then deliver those at the end. And then at the end, we could only run this project for basically one weekend, and you know, we got a lot of people through it. A lot of people had a lot of fun, but then we had to, just like theater, you know, we had to tear it down and put it away somewhere. So real quick, what is it like to be a student in one of these classes? Like, what's that beginning to end look like? A lot of ways, it looks like this. You may be excited now. You may be, wow, this sounds like a really fun thing to do. And we want to do that. We want to make everybody feel excited about taking a course. But every class that we've ever taught, the first day of class, we put this slide up and say like, yes, we are excited too. And I know, because I've done this for so many years, that eventually we're going to ride this roller coaster down to here somewhere when we realize how complex this project is and how difficult it's going to be, and all the things we hadn't considered. But I also know that, by the way, this is like October here, like usually around Halloween is like where this is. But I also know that every class that we've ever taught, we get over here to the end. And it's that journey that we're all experiencing together that is so rich, so instructive, and so scary about the work that we do. Go ahead, Karen.
No, I couldn't agree more. And this is also just another little glimpse of mapping that journey of getting from the, oh my gosh, we're not going to make it, to we're going to get this, and then heading towards done. And you can see the movement of sticky notes as we're getting closer to making our goal. And also on the top, this is kind of cruel, but also super useful. We have a timeline that marches along up here. So you can see the pink arrow on the far right-hand side. That's where we are on that. And so we have milestones in pink as we go along, and guest artists, so that students are all completely aware of what's happening throughout, even though it's coming at them at, you know, a mile a minute.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a whiteboard, right? But you should have seen what the studio looked at that time, you know, in that phase of the project. There's stuff everywhere.
Explosion of stuff everywhere with all of our projects. So roadmap. So that Creek Monster project was meant to come back to UT Austin to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And an entire new class was formed with a whole new expanded idea in mind of really connecting with student activists and student groups from the College of Natural Sciences, to work with faculty members from the College of Natural Sciences as well, and the Office of Sustainability, to look at this urban ecology and actually use this opportunity through this art installation to draw people's attention to the creek, to actually have them slow down and understand that this is a jewel of our campus. And it's now, as the campus is moving further east, it's truly the heart of our campus, and how important that ecosystem is. And so the class completely designed this. So we were using the structure of the nest from the fall project and reimagining it for the spring. So you see this map, this is what was going to happen for a month over April. We were about to install, we were a week and a half away from getting this installed into place when we were told to like never come back. Not never come back, but don't come back for a while. So you can see up top, there's that Creek Monster Habitat nest. We have information about the history of the Waller Creek itself on campus, and the Battle of Waller Creek, and we had a meditation space and a labyrinth. So we were inviting people to come down and spend time in nature. We have, over here on the far left on the bottom, we had an entire soundscape and a sound garden created where we would have had hammocks for people to relax in and chill out during spring when often students' emotional load is very high on campus. So those students specifically, this team was working with the Mind and Body Lab about creating music to help just bring people down and feel connected. So this was intended to look at the health and wellness of not only our urban ecology, but also just our community. And so we were really focused on that. We had walking tours set up. The Longhorn band was going to play in the Creek Monster Habitat. It was going to be there for the spring football game, all these things. Also, we were planning a major procession on Earth Day itself. Everything's set aside, but I wanted to share some of the images if you head to the next step. So we were actually working to not just look at this creek monster as a mythical spiritual creature, but actually examine the real creek monsters of Waller Creek, not the real ones, but the tiny ones. So if these creatures can survive in our creeks, it means our water is healthy. So they're all indicator species that are right here in Austin and evidence of what's happening with our choices within the environment and sustainability. So I worked closely with Stuart Reichler. And so here we have an example of the signage the students were making on the right. There's that labyrinth view that would have been made out of invasive species. We also were going to map the 100-year floodplain along in bands along the entirety of Waller Creek. So it's still my hope we will do that at some point, and they were intended to light up. So at night there'd be some sort of visual reference moving all the way through the creek. So that's kind of a dream postponed right now, but an extraordinary group of students looking at basically this intersection between science and art and how beneficial that can be. So there was where the nest would have gone. But yeah, we were full power. There's the rendering. So that's how high the floodplain is, you guys. So 100-year flood hits, that's what it looks like for those of you who know campus.
And then the one class that we haven't talked about was our animatronic trophy zoo, which we took to Maker Faire here in Austin in spring of 2019. Alex, who's with us, worked on that project as well. And that was a really, just a real gem of a project for me personally, because we were able to take just two classes who met at the same time. One class was learning how to do digital fabrication, which I was teaching, and another faculty member was teaching physical computing, like how to program Arduinos and things like that. And then at spring break, after that point, we smashed those two classes together and said, now make something that moves that will, delight people. And so, a few thousand people went through our animatronic trophy zoo, and it was so much fun, and a lot of people got a lot out of it. So what are we teaching now? Our intent was to teach a course very similar to the Raptor course, where we're going to build robots for a play called Headetron, where there were going to be 5 different robots. They'd be controlled by performers on stage, highly sophisticated, very technological, all that. So that was supposed to be happening right now. It didn't happen because the play was canceled due to COVID, but we knew that we had 20 people enrolled in a class who were expecting to make robots, and we knew that we wanted to make robots, and we knew that now especially people would benefit from getting their hands on real objects and making real things with their hands. Now, how do you do that safely in the situation we're in? And we made the choice to commit to sending kits out to the students who are enrolled in our course. But then what are we going to build? And we came upon the idea of having, of collaborating with elementary school students. So elementary school students are drawing robots, and our students are building robots in conversation with those children. And the wacky ideas that the kids have already come up with are just delightful. And we're just about to enter the phase of unveiling these designs to our students. And I'm sure Alex is very patiently waiting for his design. And that should be happening in the next week. But so far it's been a lot of fun just to hang out with our students and just make stuff out of cardboard, you know. That is, when it comes down to it, it's about building those relationships with our students and making stuff together.
And our hope at the end of this robot class is we'll have a performance where the children who've designed these robots can control them.
Yeah, all the robots will be connected to the internet.
So that's the hope, is to give them an ability. We were looking for a way to connect and have just meaningful creation despite isolation.
Yeah. The last thing we wanted to mention is that Karen and I are now like sponsors of a club, the Texas Theme Park Engineering Group, and which has been primarily made up of engineers who take a lot of our courses, but we see lots of opportunity for students in AET and theater and dance to become part of this club as well. So, and I know at least one student who came to UT because this club exists. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to this group, and they're some of the funnest people that I've had the opportunity to work with. So I think the last thing, I think we're just moving into our Q&A section now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, J.E. and Karen. I think everybody in the call is probably like, these projects are super exciting. Like, how do I get involved with them at UT? So like, right, everybody on the call today is possibly looking to apply as an incoming freshman or maybe a transfer student. And primarily most of them are interested in arts and entertainment technologies and theater and dance, but could just be exploring the fine arts interests in general and might be looking at a different major. How does a student like get involved in your class, and how does it like play into their particular degree or major, maybe if they are coming from different majors?
Well, I can respond to that. First of all the classes we teach are cross-listed in 3 ways: arts and entertainment technology, theater and dance, and engineering. And so there's a certain number of seats that are reserved for those students. We actively recruit students from studio art, from architecture, from other majors, and there's usually a way to get students in there with some into those empty seats, but primarily they're reserved for those 3 majors.
Awesome. And I think we got some pretty good questions in the chat. I know one student asked Jordan, great question, and maybe some of the students on the call who are participating in it could answer, but how difficult is the time management with adding these kind of classes into your overall semester schedule?
Very astute question, and I will let the students respond to that.
Our students respond to that.
Yeah. Well, I guess right to the heart of it.
Answer this one in a little bit.
Okay.
So I am part of an organization on campus, and I have been since my sophomore year, where we plan a whole bunch of events over the course of the year. And during the fall semester is when we have our largest event. And that coincided with one of the classes that I was taking, I believe it was the animatronics? No, the escape room.
Escape room.
And that was a huge challenge for me. Like, it didn't conflict that much with my other classes, since, you know, each class period has its own like time. So it wasn't really my other courses that it got challenging to balance with the escape room. It was really just the other things that I was doing outside of classes, the extracurriculars. So that was probably one of the toughest like balances I've had to do for a project, just because of how much time each of those big projects took. I think that I could have done better managing my time for both of them. But that's definitely something that I learned from in like learning how to schedule things out better, as well as learning like when I actually need to be at either of those things or at anything.
As I recall, Alex, like during that period, it was a challenge, but I remember you being though you weren't necessarily present all the time because your body needed to be somewhere else. I remember you being very communicative on Slack and really leading your team remotely very effectively before we all had to lead remotely.
Yeah.
feel like Audrey and Channing had something to say about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for some projects, well, there's always crunch time, right? Crunch time in like I feel like every project has that. And whenever you're like closer to the deadline, I can really say that sometimes you have to be very mindful of how to plan out your time. It can be sometimes challenging, I'm not gonna lie, but it's very rewarding. It's always very rewarding at the end, because the project, what you create at the end is just so, like, it's like the staple of your portfolio, something like that. And so all these projects that you're creating can go into your portfolio and they make you really good after college. And so, yeah, crunch time is probably very hard, but if you manage your time wisely, I think it's doable.
Jordan and Rachel, I'm going to try to answer your question as a 2-in-1. Okay, so at the time that I was involved in the Creek Monster project, not only was I the theater and dance student that I am that was involved with this project, but I was also the comics editor at the Daily Texan. Balancing those two things was the most challenging time management thing I've ever had to do in my entire college career, and I am a senior. So incredibly challenging, but incredibly rewarding. This, I would say the distribution between what is done in class versus what is done outside of class is probably about a 30-70 split, with 70% of what you're doing being outside of class. We had weekend work days throughout the fall, and it was literally showing up, trying to navigate home football traffic at 10 a.m., and then you would stay until, for me, I would stay until my hands were bleeding because they were covered in splinters. But it was really fun. Sorry, that probably wasn't the best way to put it.
No, I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry that happened. And you were stuffed continuously with pizza, right?
Yes.
Steady, like, pizza push.
We never went a work day without being fed. And most mornings, even at class, we had bagels and coffee waiting for us. So even though it's a lot of hard work and everyone's going into it knowing that a lot of the time commitment is going to happen outside of class, there's never a moment that we're not taking care of each other and we don't feel taken care of.
But yeah, that one was a lot. That Creek Monster project was epic because we moved way outside the realm of theoretical to the realm of there are tens of thousands of people about to walk through this thing. We didn't know it would be 60,000 people, but it was just, it got real hairy towards the end. But we made it, you guys. We stuck the landing. It was, yeah, we went from like bending straws to a weight-bearing steel structure in 2 weeks. Woo! With, you know, the help of industry experts, because I knew we had 2 weeks to get there for the rest of the team to keep going. And these guys were amazing. And Audrey stepped up and became this incredible leader in the lighting area. And Channing was yeah, anyway, I could go on, but it's not all about the Creek Monster, sorry. Clearly still pumped. Okay.
And I think there was a question from Rain, who actually is a high school sophomore, so they're getting on it early, but they're super stoked. They said they can't wait to apply. But they were just wanted to kind of know what maybe the highlight was for each of you as far as these projects, like maybe like one of the best memories. And anybody feel free to jump in with their...
I can start.
Awesome,
for me, my highlight would be, like I said, when you see your project done and you see that all your hard work paid off, like all the late nights, all the stressful moments, all that, you know, a roller coaster of despair or whatever it was called. Whenever you're like going up, you're like, yes, we made it. It's super rewarding. And I mean, there's gonna be times where you're gonna be in the bottom. And sometimes it's like, you know, 2 weeks before it's due. But right when it's done, you're like, I can't believe we did this. I think that's that was like definitely the happiest moments of college for me.
Yeah, for sure. Like getting to that top of like, oh my God, we did it. The best example of that I think that I've had is when I worked on the escape room. Actually, like having our first group go through the escape room was one of the most just terrifying, but also just just ecstatic moments of just like, oh my God, is it gonna work? Of course it's gonna work. We put so much testing and like hours into this. Of course it's gonna work, but oh God, what if it doesn't? Oh my God, it worked. And just the energy in the room was just something like between all the people who had been working on it and who were there was just otherworldly, of just like all of us just realizing that this thing that we have put so many hours and late nights into was real and that other people were getting to experience it.
I think my joys with the Creek Monster project could be expressed in 3 different moments. The first one was when Karen told us we had proved our concept for how we were going to sculpt the skin of our monster nest. So basically we went from weaving with twigs and yarn to all of a sudden we figured out we could use recycled fishing net as our base, and then we were using invasive species of tree and vines and things to sculpt little swirls that made it look like a nest. So when Karen told us that we had the go-ahead and we had proven our concept, it was amazing. The next one would probably be every Friday we had like little show and tell meetings so that all of our collaborators could see what we had done for the week. And I remember, so me and my teammate were the smallest in stature and smallest in amount in terms of team. It was just 2 of us. We were both barely over 5 feet tall, and we were building onto this 10-foot tall structure. And it was really hard. A lot of precarious ladder safety, I will admit, to get this done. But there was one day during our Friday show and tell meeting where we walked into the scenic studio where our nest was, and every other collaborator in the room gasped. And it was such a good feeling that not only were we meeting the expectations of our collaborators, but it was like all of them could finally see our project coming together because we had done our job. And the final moment, which I guess would be the peak of the roller coaster of despair, was opening night of Creek Show. I had the opportunity, because I accidentally invited myself to the opening party with Karen and Delina. I walked through every exhibit, the first walkthrough anybody got of them. I saw everybody's work, not just TPA's, and I was blown away. But ours was the grand finale, and I saw this little girl walking through it, and she'd go, oh, it blinked whenever she looked at our eyes, and she was just so excited and ecstatic by what we had made, and that made the whole journey so worth it. It was amazing.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Our work does tend to be a kid magnet. You know, it's like it delights people, and kids show it much more authentically sometimes.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that, you know, for example, for me, the reason that I got into the Creek Monster class was because I was in a class with J.E and Karen prior to the Creek Monsters. So like I knew what they got it, like what was I getting into, because I knew these classes are a little bit time consuming, if I may say so myself, but they're like very rewarding. So after coming from the special effects class, I was like, I'm sure that this class is gonna be hard, but also very rewarding, and it's gonna be something that I can talk about for years to come. So I just wanted to point out too, because there's a question I think that I recommend a freshman doing it. I think so, but you just have to don't take 5 classes, take 4. That's how I would put it myself. You don't have to take 15 hours to be full-time. You can only take 12, and that's okay. Sometimes there's a little bit of competition at UT, and they're like, oh, I'm full-time, I take 15 hours. And you're like, oh, I only take 12. And it's totally okay, okay? I think it's sometimes important for all of us to understand, sorry, I need water. To understand that it's better to be able to hold what you're having. It's the same in Spanish, so I guess it doesn't make sense in English, but it says, más vale un pájaro en mano que cientos volando. It means it's better to have something on your hand than 1,000 just like flying around. And I put that in, it's better to have a better time with less things than have like 1,000 things to do in order to be able to manage anything. So if you're a freshman, that's what I recommend. If you want to take a class like this, don't take 15 hours, take 12. Be better to yourself, be kind to yourself. And you can also start with a digital fabrication class that I recommend with J.E, which is more not like a super huge project, but you still collaborate and you still learn.
Yeah, I would add to that, like, I just want to make it clear to everybody, it's not like these three students were also like trying to like get the, you know, the grading for these courses is, you know, it's the last thing we think about, you know, because we know that we don't have to say, well, there's a test coming up, so you want to make sure you study, because people are motivated to just like keep going and going and going because the project is taking them along with them, you know. So it's a completely different way of being motivated to show up to class and do the work. But it does become, and I hadn't really thought about this until you mentioned it, like it is kind of like an extracurricular too. It's like an extracurricular and a class.
Yeah, class and a club.
I'm also going to say that taking these classes as a freshman, if you can find the time and can find a way to fit it in, it is so useful to know someone like Karen or J.E so early in your career and have that mentorship. Like Karen said, I took Creek Monster as like this weird practice. Would students be interested in this version of a prototype? And I fell in love with not only the concept, but with Karen, and made sure I was in Creek Monster the next year. And now I'm in her scenic painting course. And she is an incredible instructor, and making these connections really early in your college career is so valuable. So if you can find the time to make connections like those, I would 100% suggest that you do it.
Yeah, to throw in a little bit more into the loving J.E and Karen pot. I'm currently taking my third course with them, and just there's something about these classes of actually getting to be hands-on and like actually just making something with a huge team of people that you don't really get from other courses in college, that just kind of gets you hooked of like, oh, like my result from this other class is that I get a nice high letter on this computer screen, but my outcome for this class is that I get to lead people through a really cool escape room with things that I made with my hands. And there's just something really rewarding about these classes that once you take them, you're just hooked and you're like, like this, I'm currently in the robot class, and I'm very close to graduating, and I didn't need to take this course to graduate. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm for sure taking that class.
So glad
yeah,
you're
I must admit, sorry, Jay.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Nope, you.
I must admit that I graduated in May, and I was very tempted to do an extra semester just so I could take an extra class with Jay and Karen. Because I was like, I really want to take another class with them, but I also need to graduate. So, but I was very, very tempted. So yeah, Jay and Karen are great. If you have the chance to take a class with them, I would really recommend it completely.
And to answer your question, Rain, yeah, I would say absolutely. And I feel like there were times when we knew when to be a family that needed to support each other and when to be collaborators that had to push each other. I definitely felt that with Karen a lot, that there were times when she had to be supportive, and there were times where she was like, have you looked at the timeline today? We have to go. So it was really nice to find that balance. But also, these classes specifically are a very unique opportunity to meet people, not only in AET and theater and dance, but all over, and not only undergraduates, but graduate students. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a comic artist and I've been really interested in being a storyboard artist. And through this and through my collaborators, I actually met a graduate student in RTF, and I am currently being hired by him to storyboard his grad thesis. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to collab and build a family, but also just make really great connections with people from all over campus.
And that party you got to go to, the reason why you went to it is because you said yes. And you guys just say yes. If you want to do something, just reach over and get it.
Yeah, I actually shook hands with Karen. Who did I shake hands with? He like built a park, didn't he, in Austin? He was
Sinclair Lewis, I think. Yeah, one of the most important architects in Austin, and the reason why Waterloo Park is emerging.
Awesome. Well, this was an amazing event. I really appreciate everyone on the call's time. So J.E., Karen, Audrey, Alex, Channing, thank you so much for sharing your experience with these classes, with all the students and prospective students on the call. Yeah, so for those who attended today, I know you might be interested in applying as a freshman or a transfer student to some of our majors, particularly arts, entertainment technologies, maybe theater and dance, or maybe other ones. So I just wanted to say we do have a couple more events going up on Thursday and Friday. So again, you can check that registration link to sign up for those. As well as if you have any more questions about how to get to UT, particularly in the departments you're interested in, whether it's music, theater, school design, creative technology, or art, we each have a department contact. So you can definitely follow the link I dropped in the chat. We have our department contacts. So you can reach out to me if you're interested in design or AET, and the other department coordinators too for your prospective majors. But thanks again, everybody on the call. Honestly, I was inspired to hear from you all about the projects, and it definitely was a really fun time. And I think in the comments, it seems like people agree.
Yeah, and I was, it's just great to see some former students as well. I feel like this has been a little bit of a reunion with Audrey in particular. I haven't seen you in a while. I miss you.
I miss you guys, really. But it's okay.
Karen, I'll see you Friday.
You'll see me Friday. 2 point
Good seeing you,
perspective
Alex.
and then color theory. Robots for you, Alex. They're coming.
It was so nice to meet all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for everybody, and have a good rest of your night. Hopefully we see you later this week.
Thanks, David, for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Have a good night, everybody.